So if you are currently have a rental property or considering purchasing a rental property in Ventura County, well, you may want to stick around today because we're going to take a look at the two big rental issues. One is rent control, and the second is the eviction process when selling a rental property. And what used to be somewhat a very simple process has now become a more of a labyrinth to navigate, with it being different in each state and each city, actually. And today's guest, Kristina Brewer, is well acquainted with both topics and runs our property management division here at Remax Gold Coast Realtors. Kristina runs a full spectrum property management service with long-term and vacation rentals. I think now you manage over 700 properties in Ventura County, which is incredible. Obviously, you got a big team. And I think you've been in the business now, 14 years already?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, Kristina, obviously, thank you for joining today on these two topics. I do get questions. This does happen pretty frequently with people that own rental property. And I think let's start off with the issue of rent control in California. What types of properties does the rent control typically apply to?
The most simple answer is apartment buildings and multifamily units. So
Okay.
Duplexes, triplexes, those, and owners that are LLCs, corporations.
Gotcha. And then who is exempt from the California rent control?
Most single family owners and condos. So
Gotcha.
The basics.
Right. And obviously those that are under rent control, what are the basic requirements that they have to follow?
So the ones that are under rent control have to, currently with the state of California, the AB 1482, that is rent is 5% plus cost of living, the CPI, and currently right now in California it's about 10%. You can only raise rent once a year, and it has to be in writing.
Wow. Okay, so that really is pretty restrictive. And then rent control in other cities, I understand certain other cities have even obviously more stringent controls. What are those cities and requirements?
So currently right now, City of Oxnard and the City of Ojai are at a 4% max. And that, again, they follow the same protocol of once a year and in writing.
Okay. So given the rent control, because I think the idea behind rent control obviously was to limit how much, landlords can obviously raise the rent each year. And so how does that affect what you do with your property management practice?
For us, basically, we just handle it with the attorneys. So it's just a protocol that we handle, and with any properties that we're dealing with rent control, it's
Gotcha.
Raising the rent every year.
Okay. Yeah, and I was going to say, and in light of that, what are some of the challenges you face in dealing with properties that are under rent control?
I think that facing those challenges, the owners had the properties prior to obviously COVID, and the rent was kind of low at that point, not completely low, but when we got into COVID, everything halted for 4 years. And then obviously inflation happened, and then all the owners want their rent to be at fair market value.
Right.
That.
Yeah.
So I think that is owners feel defeated because they feel like, well, why can't I raise my rent to the max amount? And they just have to raise it every year at that 4% or at that 10%.
Okay. So that's pretty much all that they can do in terms of handling that situation. They're faced with just having to just be able to raise it every year. Okay. All right. That makes sense. And so on the subject of the eviction process, I know I deal with that on my end a little bit. And from your perspective, how would you say the eviction has changed over the years from your perspective?
It is something that is way more complicated. It is definitely, like I said, the attorney's on speed dial, and certain evictions, and I don't want to say they're evictions, it's like notices for tenants to vacate because the owner wants the property back for whatever reason it is. You've got to be super cautious. You have to know exactly the right moves to be able to have the tenant vacate without any kind of litigations.
Okay. So speaking of vacate, because obviously we got a lot of owners that looking to sell their property. They got a tenant in there, and I think everybody wants what's the easy button? Kristina, so what's the easiest way to really sell a property with a tenant in it, either a house or condo? What's the process look like for cities over here in the West County area?
Well, the easiest way to do it, if they're covered and protected by the city of Oxnard, which the ordinance, and then also Ojai is protected.
Okay.
And then there is a blanket for AB 1482, which is for multifamilies.
Gotcha.
Properties, whether they're a single family home in the city of Oxnard or a single family home in the city of Ojai, those ones are covered under the just cause. So you have to give 2 months rent to the tenant plus a 60-day notice. But if you're trying to sell the house, you cannot rent the property for 5 years because it's protected under the LLC. So those two cities alone, now if you go to the AB 1482, which is covered with a blanket for any multifamily units that are not covered in the cities that already have an ordinance, those ones you have to give 1 month's rent, 60-day notice, and there's really no date of a time frame. They said between 1 and 2 years. So I guess it's how you interpret it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It just depends on where you're.
Right. Before you could re-rent it again.
Yeah. So
okay.
Those are the biggest thing. I mean, I've talked to multiple attorneys, and their biggest thing to me is saying doing cash for keys. Do cash for keys if you're trying to sell a house that are protected in any of those.
If you want to re-rent it.
If you want to re-rent it, and you're not having an investor buying it.
Right. Because if somebody's going to live in it, you don't have to worry about that issue. Right. But if it's one of those where they're going to re-rent it, or so it's just to kind of encapsulate it. It's Ojai, Oxnard, and then anything that's covered under AB the AB 1482. So that means multifamily apartment. So how about other cities such as Ventura, Camarillo, Santa Paula, Fillmore, Port Hueneme? What are the rules that apply for the eviction process again to sell a property?
As of right now, there is none. Port Hueneme, They brought the rent control to Port Hueneme. Port Hueneme said no.
Okay.
What I'm hearing is that the programs are all with money, right? You have to have money to create the programs. I don't believe that Port Hueneme wanted the program, but I don't know exactly what it was. They just said no. Ventura has been playing with it, but it hasn't happened. Santa Paula and Fillmore, I know that they had meetings in Santa Paula and then Fillmore as well, but I don't know if it's actually going to happen. We just found out Carpinteria did adopt it.
Oh, really?
Again,
okay.
It's constantly changing. So anytime that you have a question about it, look at the links that were provided and just to see if your property's in it. If you have questions, contact an attorney. Obviously, you can always contact me to see, and I can try and investigate, but obviously the laws are changing every day. Right.
Well, obviously, thank you for giving us the insights, and obviously we're going to provide the links in the description below for the rent stabilization and the eviction process. But at the end of the day, Kristina, I guess any advice you give landlords in these situations?
Just be careful. That's it.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Well, Kristina, thank you for touching on these big issues that I run across, and obviously the insights and your experience. So if someone does want to contact you, your office, or get more rental information, what's the best way for that to happen?
Well, you can check out our website, stayvcrentals.com. That's STAYVC as in Ventura County, rentals with an S.com. And our phone number, contact information is all there.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And obviously, if you enjoyed this video today, give it a like or a thumbs up. Thanks.